How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. It's a Tuesday. I'm here with you. What more can I ask for?
I'm so glad that you were able to make this work with your schedule because when I first talked to you about it, it's like, look, all of the stuff is going on right now. Travel is
Yeah.
in season.
Yes.
So, what we want to really talk about in this first segment before our break, I really want to ask you about how you became a travel blogger. Like
Man,
your story, Tosh.
I think I'm trying to accept that that is who I am right now. So I'm kind of going through my own, like just stepping into it. But I feel like it kind of just happened to me. I love travel. I love what you can learn from traveling. I just love the way that it stretches you. And so I just started sharing about travel. And I think what really drew people to me was that I was traveling with a very tiny baby to these really exotic places. So when my daughter Courage, my second daughter, was 4 months old, we put her on a plane and we did Athens and Santorini and Paris, and we were like doing the things. Like we weren't like staying in the hotel, but we were out, and people were just like, "How are you traveling with these little kids?" And it just was like, I don't know. It was a lot of work, but it was just something that people weren't used to seeing, especially like a Black woman with like little tiny babies out there. And so the more that I realized how important it was for people to see that, the more I leaned into it. And I mean, I just get the fun trips out of it, you know? So that's kind of how it happened. It was just like this passion that I was sharing, that people were just like, wait a minute, how are you doing this?
Yeah, well, see, this is something that I love this about your story because it really goes hand in hand. You are talking about traveling, but you were also creating these beautiful images.
I may have taken a few pictures along the way. It might have happened that way.
This is a great blend because when you can take something that you love, like photography, and take it to another level, this is the kind of stories I love about how social media bolsters what we're doing
Yeah.
and really builds an audience. So you have a really large following. I mean, as you started to do this, tell us a bit about how that following grew for you.
Yeah. So as I started just showing people and going places where traditionally you're not seeing like African Americans travel. So one of our very first trips, we went to Southeast Asia and we went to China and we were bringing people along. I think it's kind of like when your homegirl goes to the store, right? And she buys that thing that you've been eyeing, but you see it on her, you're like, okay, well, maybe it will fit on me too. It was kind of that. We were like, look, we're going to take the first step. We're going to go to these places that we've like read about. We're going to take, and we're going to bring people along with us. And we're going to tell our stories in a way that feels inclusive, I guess, or that people feel like they're a part of it. So I think that's kind of just how it happened. And as I shared more and as I invited people into our stories and how travel has changed me and how it has been a priority for me in terms of it's one of our core values as a family. How I want to raise my kids. I want them to have a very large worldview. I want them to feel like they can enter any space and be able to rise to the occasion, to show up to the table. And for me, part of that is them getting out and seeing the world. And so I think that other people want that too, and they just sometimes don't know, one, that it's possible for them. Two, especially Black and brown people feel like they don't know if it's safe for them. And three, I think that sometimes you just need someone to lay the roadmap and to go, wait a minute, guys, it's not as hard as you think. It's not as expensive as you think. Instead of buying those Jordans or getting that iPhone, instead get the iPhone and get the Jordans. Get it all. You should get it all. But also it's just about prioritizing the thing that's important to you. And for me, for a long time, what was really important to me was travel. And that's where we put our energy and our money and our time. So,
This prioritization is so key because when we think about our finances, oftentimes that is exactly what the differentiation in our minds is. We have to change how we're prioritizing our spending. And it's not as if you don't really have it, but if you're putting away,
yeah,
the next thing you know, you could at least be doing a dope trip once every year or 2 years, depending on how long it takes for you to save up.
it's true.
But it is about, being consistent with it and really understanding that you're going to make that a priority. So I love how you say that. Also, too, I mean, you're talking about, the foundation of your family. You and your husband are both photographers, and it's a beautiful story. Just tell us a bit about how you guys both said, we're stepping into photography.
Yeah.
I think you started first and then
yeah,
came
it
along,
wasn't
right?
a beautiful story. It was actually a very frustrating story for me. So I actually stepped in photography after taking a really big loss. I had lost a loved one and I was in a really deep depression. And I feel like a lot of our beautiful moments in life are born out of like the toughest things if we allow for that to happen. And so for me, I was just in a really tough spot and needed something to focus on. And I had this camera that my husband had bought me after our first anniversary, and it had sat on the shelf for a year. And it was just like, I'm so down. Like, let me pick up this camera and see what I can do with it. And so I started learning how to shoot. I was shooting dumb stuff like shoes, ornaments, pillows. Like I was shooting things that didn't move. I made so many mistakes. And as I was learning, he kind of like was like, well, wait a minute, this looks cool, you know. So in those first couple years of our business, it was really me that was shooting, but he was so intrigued by it and wanted to see what he could do. And so I started teaching him what I was learning, and it was just a way for me to kind of, I guess, reinvest into myself. When you're teaching someone else, you are kind of going through the motion twice, right? And over time, here we are. And I hated it at first. Like, I just was like, this sucks. Like, I wanted this to be my own thing. But what I've learned over the last decade plus of doing this is like two, right? Two is better than one. Like, that's biblical truth. And he's so talented. And where I'm not strong in our business, he is strong, and opposite. So it has turned into a really great partnership for our business.
I love it. I love it. You guys are doing it. And, we have a little clip here of when we were together at
Yeah.
Washington History Museum, and we were talking about being inspired by the photos
Yeah.
that were there in the Green Book exhibit. Exactly.
These photos.
Yeah, I get to be here in this Black greatness every single day.
It's
But I
incredible.
want to show the audience how you were talking about how you, as a photographer, were picking up some of that inspiration from the Green Book exhibit. I am so inspired by all of these images. As you walk around here, I just got to ask you, you were talking about how some of the quotes are really standing out to you. And as a photographer, this imagery, I just think 50 years from now, some of your imagery possibly, being in a place like this. Tell us a bit about how that resonates with you, because there is some amazing imagery here. Some of it is like staged, right? Some of it is just in the field, but just it's so important that we understand how powerful imagery is.
Imagery speaks in a way that nothing else can, right? I mean, you can see, like, I mean, I'm looking at this picture behind us, like, there's a whole story here. And there's the story that's being told, the true story, but then there's the imagined story, right? And it's like, how did we get here? And what is this launching pad of to get us to this point too? I think imagery is so important. And I think like we're seeing that in everything that we do, right? Like pictures they run the world right now, picture and video, like that is what's important. And so as I think about being in this space and all of the stories or all of the things that you get to learn from watching or looking at these pictures, and then I think about 50 years from now and my own imagery and the stories that they tell, it just defines even the more how important photography is, storytelling is, right? Mm-hmm. Because these stories or these images tell a story that everyone has access to, whether they can read, whether they can write. Aside from those who may be visually impaired, everybody else does have access to seeing these images and really interpreting them however they need to get the story. And that's what's so cool about them. There's like an intended message, and then there's the message that you get where your story that you're seeing, like the lens that you're viewing the image through, like what do you take away from that? And I think that's really important because there's a level of storytelling that happens in every single one of these images that are here.
I love that so much. One of the things that I was going to say was there's something so pure about intentionality of watching life happen through a lens, right? And so as a photographer, you're able to now travel and bring your kids along and take photos of them in all these amazing spaces. So before we go to break, I just got to ask you, when you think about all of the things that you guys have been able to do as a family, what is one of the high high moments for you of like your kids exploring, them getting that worldview? Just tell us one high moment in all of your travels.
I don't think the high moment has come from the travel necessarily. I think the high moment is when I watch my children talk about where they've been or what they've done, and the confidence that comes from them, or hearing them repeat back the stories or what they learned. It's the in between moments. It's the things that are unexpected. I could ask my daughter, what's your favorite trip? But that's not it. It's when she's encouraging her classmate who loves the Eiffel Tower, and she's telling them about her trip to Paris and how they can do it too. That's the high moment. It's the way that it's shaping them. And it's knowing that, I think sometimes as a travel blogger, and I'm sure other people feel this way as well, you feel like you're dragging your kids around and you're wondering, people have all of their opinions about whether they're too young for it, they're not going to remember it, or, you're wasting your money. Why don't you wait until they're older? But like, life doesn't work that way, right? And so for me, in those moments when I'm watching Courage talk about it, or when I see the joy on Courage's face when we are out doing something, for me, that's the high moment.
Yeah.
Because I see that it is making a difference and that it is shaping them. And I push past the criticism or the things even that I question, like, does this make sense? Is this how we should be living our life? And I'm seeing the fruit of it. And so that's it for me.
I know that's right, Tosh. As a mother, that's got to be the best takeaway and the biggest like chunk of joy, because it's working, right? It's like, your intention is falling on your children in a way where you get to experience the nuances of that and how they, envelop it in their own lives. Amazing, Tosh. We're going to go to break real quick here. When we come back, we're going to dive into these 3 travel tips that we are getting from Tash on our Travel Tip Tuesday. You guys don't want to miss this. Stay tuned after this short break. You guys, you're watching The Day with Trae.
Hey guys, Basic Gordon here. Check this out. Hadestown is coming to Seattle. And you know what? I need to make sure you guys understand this is not a drill. So let me take my glasses off for a second. Hadestown is coming to Seattle, and the first day that you will be able to see it is going to be at the Paramount on July 12th. And you already know myself and Trae Holiday will be there. Fun fact, when Hadestown was first premiering over in LA, Broadway Across America actually sent myself and Trae Holiday down there to not only see the show, but to literally interview all of the actors and the director. And let me tell you, if there's one thing about me, I'm not that big on seeing things multiple times, but this show right here, I plan on seeing it the first day that it comes to Seattle. So look, if you have not grabbed your tickets for Hadestown, you are missing out. And as someone that is a hopeless romantic, I let you know now, you will not be disappointed when you go see Hadestown. From the acting, the music, to the freaking theatrics, to even the stage setup. You will love everything about Hadestown. Even if you're feeling like, you know what, I don't know if I'll be able to relate to anything in here. Trust and believe you will be able to either relate to something or gravitate towards something within Hadestown. Tickets are on sale now, and you will be able to see Hadestown right here in Seattle at the Paramount from July 12th to July 17th. Please grab your tickets now before they sell out.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday, and I just got to echo my girl Besa right there. Tonight is opening night for Hadestown, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed in this amazing show. We're talking about top-notch talent, music, set, costume design. It is all there for you. So I can't wait to be there tonight at the Paramount Theater. You heard it right there. Make sure you guys cop your tickets today for this show. You do not want to miss that. Well, of course, we are back with our Travel Tip Tuesday with Tash Haynes, and we're going to be diving into some tips. Tash, you brought us some travel tips today.
I brought you a few little tips, you know what I'm saying? Just a few. Yeah, I was really thinking about this, and I'm like, what are some really relevant, like, cutting edge ideas, tips, thoughts for travel where we are right now, right? Because travel's picked up quite a bit. Prices are through the roof. I know that I have been hanging out in Tacoma. I have not been on any planes recently because don't want to pay. But I thought about these three things that I feel like anybody could apply to their life. Anybody could actually, when we get off of this interview, they could go and do it right now, whether they're traveling or whether they hope to travel. And so the first thing is get your passport. I feel like you should always have a passport. It's fairly affordable, $120, $130, and it is taking a long time for passports to come to people. And so you don't want to be in a situation where those flight deals go on sale, because they will. We're going to probably hit a recession. People are probably not going to be traveling, which means that flights are going to come down, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity to travel overseas and to do different things. You don't want to be the person that found the $400 flight to Thailand but can't go because you don't have a passport. So if you don't have a passport, get a passport. But even further than that, the world is a little wild right now, and I feel like Black and brown people should have passports so that they're able to, that should be a part of just your plan if you need to get out of the country. So there are a lot of people I know in my life that don't have passports, and that's something that I'm pushing. It should be as important as a social security card, as a birth certificate. And it's the third thing I do when my kids are born. We go and get passports. The next thing that I feel like people aren't aware of is that you can have a mileage number with any airline without having a credit card. And you don't even have to like fly the airline all the time. But I know that in the beginning, for me, I was always a person that would go to like Hotwire or one of those like sites that could find like the cheapest flights. And I think it's really important to get in the habit of signing up for mileage, so that when you are traveling, you are getting the benefit of spending that money and getting on those flights. So one of the things that people don't also know is that your children can have mileage numbers. So the fourth thing I do when my children are born is I call up my airlines and I get them their mileage numbers. And they don't automatically get miles from flying until a seat is purchased. And so once they turn 2, they start to acquire miles. And that has been a game changer for us because all of my girls collect miles every time we go somewhere. And so when we're planning a family trip and maybe like money's a little tight, we can just go into their miles and we can use their miles to travel. Or you can be really amazing and save up those miles and give those miles to them as a gift at some point so that they can travel on their own with their friends. So that's something to think about. In partnership with the mileage thing, if you have the capacity to get a mileage credit card and pay all of your bills on it, that's our strategy. And we pay every single thing. We don't purchase anything with debit cards anymore. We always use our credit card and we pay it off by the end of the week every single time. And if you're going to be paying bills, why not be rewarded for paying those bills? And that's something that I feel like we get that information last. And that's how people travel. They have these travel credit cards and they're paying all of their bills with it. You can essentially pay every single bill that you have except for your mortgage or your rent with a credit card. And so that's a really great way to utilize acquiring points. And a lot of credit card companies, or a lot of these airline credit card companies, they also give you a companion pass every single year. So my family, we have 2 credit cards with Alaska Airlines, and we end up getting a buy one, get one free twice, which covers most of our family traveling. So these are like little hacks that anybody can take advantage of, so that they can travel and get out there. And my very last one is, if you are traveling right now, it is really important to splurge on the tickets that allow you to refund your ticket or transfer your ticket. Stay away from like the cheap hotel reservations that you're locked into. Stay away from like the flights that are like really, really low cost economy flights that lock you in. There are some airlines that are still extending, if you need to change your ticket, they're allowing you to do that up until 2023. I know that Delta is one of them, and Alaska, if you buy one of those like cheaper flights. But I think that one of the things that we should do after the last 2 years is make sure that we have insurance on everything that we purchase. We just don't know what's going to happen in the world. We don't know. Countries are going to be shut down. And so we want to protect our investments. And it can be really hard to spend that extra money But the opportunity to get your money back or to change your plan, I think is really important. And I'm a person who buys the basic flights. I'm a cheapo, but in the last year, I'm like, no, I got to splurge for the insurance of being able to change my hotel dates, get a refund, negotiate, changes. And so those are like my big tips for just anyone who wants to travel or is traveling now. Like these are things to consider.
Wow, Tosh. You were right. Look, okay. So during the break, Tosh was like, you know what? I'm going to give some tips. Hopefully you can use them too. I will be using them because, okay, several of them I do already, right? Like I already have half of the application done for my kids'
Come
passports.
on,
I
let's
need to
finish
finish it
it today.
And then I do have, a Sky Miles card. So I'm, but to pay all my bills on it, that's a game changer for me. So I'll definitely be using these tips right here, Tosh. And the thing is that as our people are wanting to get out more, I know one of my best friends right now is in Greece. Shout out to you, bestie K. With her sorority sisters, and she's like, oh my gosh, everything is so expensive, but she knows it's so worth it. That's the thing, is that when you were talking about it earlier in terms of prioritization, the experience that you are paying for is priceless, right?
So
It's like
true.
you get to create new memories in a place and space you've never been. You get to really explore different cultures, cuisine, fashion, all of that in a new space. And so I'm one that is so grateful because world travel does change you. And this is why I've really been like, no, I need to do something before my son graduates high school. He's 16 now, about to be a junior. So I got a little bit of time, but I want to do several major trips with him and really get him to explore. So thank you so much for those travel tips.
Yes,
I will be taking them on.
Yes, come on. Yes, I love to hear it.
Well, I really appreciate you for, again, making time in your busy schedule to be with me.
Always
on the
for
day
you,
with
Trae.
Look, this is going to be a fun ride. Tosh is going to be coming on, you guys, and giving everybody all of these amazing travel tips. Thank you for what you're doing and what you are doing. As I said there, I was inspired by the photographs, but also very inspired by your story and by what you're doing.
Thank you.
We need to see more of us living in our, what did you say? In purpose, on purpose.
In purpose, on purpose, soft life, all the things.
Oh, I love it. Tosh Haynes, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. What a pleasure.